So we're off on the start of February, and how's it looking? Well, it's still looking like the storm clouds are up above us, but what is going on beneath the surface? There is lots to be bullish about. So even though the storm clouds are still present and everything seems down, that is not the end of this story. Now today is our special day that we get Paul from Definity joining us to do some price analysis on some of the top cryptos as well as your recommendations. And if you have recommendations, you can put them below in the comment section of this YouTube video and we'll review them the following week. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Crypto Rainn channel. I'm your host, Jay Rainn, and if you like money in crypto and you're looking for a real investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking this video and subscribing with that all notifications bell enabled. Special note, I'm not a financial advisor. Paul's not a financial advisor. We are crypto investors and general investors ourselves, sharing with you what we think about the crypto market and specific cryptos we like, as well as reviewing your recommendations. For myself, crypto has taken my portfolio from thousands to millions, and I share with you the Rainmaker system I created that leads to amazing results. Note, I do own or plan to own most of what I bring up on this channel, though on the user reviews, well, that may or may not, and generally I'll tell you if I do. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's go ahead and give me just a second and we will bring on Paul. We also want to thank our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. There is a link below to our Patreon if it interests you. Because this is a closed group, there is even more I am able to discuss there that I can't in this setting, though I try to give you some of the best alpha right here on YouTube. All right. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you joining us.
Oh, it's always great to be here.
I look forward to this episode, and I love your your thoughts on what's going on. I love the things that you bring up, especially the things that you're interested in, and just expands my understanding every time we do this.
Brilliant. Well, I really enjoy it too, and thanks to everyone for putting your picks in the comment section, and we'll get to those very quickly. But I think first off, what I like to do is have a look at the overall picture, the overall macro picture of the markets, just to see what it's telling us and how it might be affecting the broader crypto market. So shall I just jump into the charts?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so let's just do that. So I'm just going to share my screen here, and we're going to start off by, right, so I've got Ethereum up, but I'll start with the US 10-year Treasury bond market, which I always talk about because where yields are going is extremely important, because obviously if people are getting interest on their money or the cost of money goes up, that means they pull risky investments. And it's also an indication of inflation, which at the moment seems to be rising, and people are noticing that. And so are the Fed. So there's a lot of talk about interest rates going up. This is the 10-year yield of the US Treasury bond market, and we've been talking about this pushing upwards, which it has been, and it looks like it's hovering below a very big level here at 1.494, 1.949 I should say. And if it breaks this 1.949, it could quite easily jump to 2.5. So this is why I'm monitoring this. Now, if that happens, it could well push the dollar up for another move. And I'll just give you a chart of the US dollar index, which is, I see it as a bit of a competitor to cryptocurrencies, in the sense that, if the dollar's strong, then it's something that global investors might want to put their money in, especially if they're worried about geopolitical tensions. And what we mean by that is basically if there's potential for a war going on. I don't think there's going to be a war in Ukraine, but it doesn't really matter what I think. It matters what the market thinks. And if they start buying dollars on the back of that, they might pull them from, inverted commas, riskier investments. So the dollar has been going up. It's been rallying quite nicely, and it's had a bit of a correction here, but the basic path is still bullish, I believe. So I think we'll get one more move in the dollar. Now, the reason why I keep looking at this is because each week, once this trend is over, it could really set up a massive move in the crypto market. So we need it to punch itself out, and then we can start talking about a big correction. Now, that doesn't mean that crypto can't go up even while the dollar's going up. That's absolutely possible. It can decouple from the broader assets, but it's just less likely. So if it's not a if it's not a negative, it's not a positive either. So it would be better if we would see the dollar weakening and people looking to hedge in other currencies and other products. Now, I think that will come. I think that there's going to be a period at some point this year where that's going to be a very aggressive call, where the dollar could potentially be weakening very, very quickly. But at the moment, it's not doing that. So crypto has been under a bit of pressure. And I think that we've been very cautious. I mean, we've been talking week to week about how cautious we are. When the correction started and broke 54,000 in Bitcoin, that was a warning sign. And we drew in this downward trend line. The market is still moving downwards. But last week, we talked about a very good level where we thought the market may turn around. Now, it's had a reasonable bounce. As you can see, a lot of the altcoins have gone up, and there's been some good short-term buying. But if you take a step back and look at this chart, it's not enough to reverse the trend completely. So what I'm saying by that is it's a good bounce. It's very nice. It's done percentage terms very well. But we still need some levels to get taken out before we can sort of breathe a sigh of relief and say, actually, this is going to be a consolidation, a bigger consolidation. First one is it's got to break this downward trend line, which it's an accelerated downward trend line. So we had a downward trend line at this rate, then it accelerated to this rate. And so that would be the first line that it needs to break, which actually crosses over with this 39,576 level, which was really important on the way down as well. You can see it bounced there before and there as well. So if it can regain that level, then things would start to look so much better. It got very close, and then a bit of profit taking came in. But again, that's not enough to reverse the trend either. But we just have to be aware that we're still edging higher in a very sensitive market. So, I like to look at both sides of where the market could go when it's at these crossroads. So, I feel as though it was worth being bullish last week because the market had fallen so far. I'm going to say, unless it can break these lines, I'm going to be a bit cautious, because this coming week is going to be quite important. If it can't break these lines and starts to tone down, we have to be aware that, there may be another leg down before the big turnaround. And I do believe there will be a big turnaround. I think there's another massive upside in crypto to come. And what's interesting is, there are people like Crypto Rainn are saying a very similar thing from a different perspective. So there should be one more massive upward phase that we're looking to catch. Now, if this is a topping pattern, a major topping pattern, the way it looks a bit wrong. So this is Ethereum. So if this was going to be a big, what we call double top, it would look a little different to the way it looks here. So this is why, so I look for symmetry. And if this is one peak, the second peak would look very similar to this one, and it doesn't. It looks more broader and rounder, and it looks more like a consolidation. So for that reason, I'm still working on the basis that this is a correction of this upward trend, which if we take a big step back and look at the overall trend is still bullish. So there's no need at this point to change our view from a sort of broader technical point of view. The trend is still up. The big picture is still up. But it's still tentative, so we have to tread carefully.
Yeah, completely agree. And I do think there is a really big leg coming. I keep referring and sharing with the audience the stock to flow model, which I think it does the best of any model to encapsulate the value of Bitcoin. Is it continues to get adoption, yet the increase, get the supply of new Bitcoin that gets minted every 10 minutes gets cut in half every 4 years. And so, unlike other assets like gold, they keep mining more, especially as the price goes up. They throw more resources into mining it, and even more gets extracted. Then fiat currency is getting printed off at record levels, and so the value isn't growing in those things. The value is either staying the same or decreasing, while Bitcoin is becoming more desirable, and yet it's relatively scarce and going to remain relatively scarce. At the max, there's only 23 million Bitcoin, and so if you have one, then that means most of the rest of the world won't even have a chance to own a whole one. And as it becomes more commonplace that everyone owns it, Like that's what brings up the value, is all these millionaires that come late to the party and they want your Bitcoin. They're going to have to pay you lots and lots and lots for it. That's why Kathy Woods believes that by the year 2030 that Bitcoin will be $1 million. And the ETH, I forget what her prediction for ETH was. It was really, really high. And that's where this is going. Now, what date it gets there? I think she might be conservative. I think it'll happen before 2030. But that is the direction it's going. So we're in the right place. We're also here at the right time, because would you rather be here buying at highs or at lows, right? So most of us come in buying at highs because that's just the way it works psychologically. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency doesn't catch our attention to look into the research until like massive gains are being made by one of our friends, who then like, wow, I just made 75,000 on this thing, and you're like, what? Or I made 2 million on this thing, and then you're like, what? Okay, what is going on? So that's usually when we enter in, usually right in time to catch a flip around. I noticed a lot of my audience came in March. Well, that's when a lot of people came into crypto. I came in 2017 during that massive bull run. But the smart, the exceptional, are the ones that are still here when it gets what I call boring. By boring, I mean the price action is down, and so people get bored and they tune out. And yet you're here and you're tuning in. Congratulations, you are part of the 5% that'll probably win at this game, which is just an investment game. Think of it like a game, and you're just trying to outlast, be more tenacious than the rest. Because a lot of people come in, they FOMO at the top, they panic sell out at the bottom, and a lot of those gains then go to you because they've left the game. So, now is it a game? Well, I mean, life is a game, from the sense that life is a game. Yes, it is. But massive money to be made for those that are tenacious and patient and willing to play. And it's as simple as buy when it's low and sell when it's high. So because it's that simple, you think everyone would do it, and it often works the opposite of that. Why don't we, if you would, what thoughts are on your mind, Paul, before we get into some of the viewer picks? Anything particular that you would love for us to look at?
Well, I first of all, I totally agree with what you were saying before. When it comes to the overall market, you've seen a correction, you've seen big corrections. The problem is, if people haven't seen them, they don't know how to react to them. And it's like, well, when you've anticipated, well, yeah, okay, the market could go down, it could potentially go as far as 20,000 on the downside. That's possible. But then it would be a screaming buying opportunity for a massive rally. So it really depends. It always feels like the end of the world near the low. And but the overall long-term trend is to the upside. So I think not having too much leverage can also be important, because if you're over levered, then when you get these corrections, you get forced out of your positions as well. Now, of course, that means you can make a lot of money as the market goes up, of course, but it tends to not do it in a straight line. And so timing is very important. But I think your point about staying in the market and just surviving is absolutely key. You know, you have to do that to protect your capital, to be around for when the big moves come. And as bearish as it might feel now, there will be a inverted bullish phase coming where it feels completely opposite. So a couple of those cycles, and then you know what to expect. But yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still looking at I'm looking most closely, I suppose, at the charts of Mana. I'll just go back into that, only because, and this is a viewer pick, but we'll have a look at that in a moment. I'm looking at it mainly because, I still like the way this broke out to the upside and hasn't retraced very much of its overall breakout. And I was of the opinion that, if the market wanted to, if this was a great opportunity, it would be very hard to get it much lower, because the market at the beginning of a major trend rarely gives you a chance to get back in, like to reverse time and go before the point where Facebook changed their name to Meta. Now, I don't know for sure whether this is definitely going to go up, but it's the one that I think should lead the way compared to everything else, and it seems to be doing okay. So it's had its correction, probably a bit of a bigger correction than I would have liked, but the circumstances around the broader market weren't favoring any other markets either. So it's done pretty well in that environment. It's had a fairly decent bounce. It's now come back to some good resistance, which is coming off again. So we will have to see how it holds this trend, and if it can. It looks like it's breaking this downward trend line, which is a good sign. It just needs to be clear of this 310 resistance, 310 to 313, and then it will look even better. So let's have a look. I'll have a quick look at the Sandbox because that's one that is kind of like the direct competitor to it. So yeah, I mean, look, that's doing well as well, and this has come out. This was a clearer double top actually. It was a much smoother top than Mana was, but this is still looking like a rebound in a broader upward trend. So the broader trend is bullish, and it's just come back against it now. Very similarly, it's had a little rebound. I think we even talked about the turnaround that was going on here. So it's had a fairly decent bounce from 3 to like 4 percentage terms. That's a massive move, but of course it had lost quite a lot on the way down as well. But for me, I'm like looking at this from the point of view of where it will be in a couple of years' time. I'm not that worried about week to week. I think big picture, that's why I want to stick with it. So those are the ones I tend to gravitate to because I think there's so much underlying interest. Now, I would be asking you whether you think things have got a little bit too far in that space and whether the market's got too excited and perhaps there may be a bigger correction there and we might see some boring and cheap levels, to put it in your terms.
Yeah, we might see more boring and cheap levels, particularly on those because of the pump that happened so much. But it depends on when this bigger move happens. And so when this bigger move happens, like all rationality gets thrown to the side and you see everything go crazy. And the reason I believe in selling is I fundamentally believe in holding for like the next 10 years. But the only reason I believe in selling is because there's so much emotions behind it. When it goes crazy, it goes extra crazy, and then the corrections are just gigantic. So having not sold in 2017, I watched 15,000 I invested. I got in a little bit late in that bull run, and so Bitcoin was already at 6,200 up from lows prior, like below 1,200. At 6,200. It did go to 20,000. I moved from Bitcoin to the altcoins pretty fast, and I saw my portfolio go from 15,000 to 165,000, and then I watched it evaporate down to 3,000 because I was in the riskier altcoins. And some of those went to zero, and some of them kept some value, but the retracements on the altcoins were huge. Now, over time, altcoins won't retrace as much, and every cycle it seems like Bitcoin retraces less. But even still, last time it retraced 85%. Ethereum retraced 95% of its gains because it went to almost 1,500. It was about 1,400. Went all the way down to about $75, and so it got savaged. And my guess is we'll have an over pump, a blow off top again, and it will be a massive wave with massive euphoria. And I'll be selling into that, and then I'll be putting on the sideline so that when prices overcorrect, because that's just the emotional pattern, because when people get into crypto, they throw all logic out the window, and they buy in the euphoria phase, and then they panic sell later. And, unfortunately, we can't change that for everybody, but hopefully we can change that for our audience, so that they learn to think like an investor, because realize that investors think differently, and when you think like an investor, you do have different results because you're setting the emotions aside and you're buying at logical levels and selling at logical levels, not FOMOing into things. So yeah, it's possible on those two we see a bigger correction. I can't tell. Those charts are really, really unique because it had a vertical line up, and then it still has a lot of support. You would have thought once it broke below that, like, what was it, 290 mark on mana, that it would have kept pushing down, and yet it did not. So I don't know what to think on those. I do think in the greater pull or push up that they're going to do even better. And then I'm going to be taking a lot of my profits off the table out of the altcoins that I'm in. I'm no longer in Decentraland and Mana, and unfortunately I sold just before Mark Zuckerberg made the announcement because I was really happy with my gains. I had bought it like 5 cents, and so it was way up. I had bought Sandbox at about 5 cents as well. And so I bought them when they were very boring and people were saying they were going to be nothing. And then when they started getting exciting, not knowing that Facebook was going to make a major announcement, making them very exciting, I sell when things get exciting because that's when the majority of people are buying. But then it went up even crazier, and it's like, oh, okay. Well, I can't be mad. I made 20x, but I would have made 100x. So,
Yeah.
shoot.
So
Oh,
I
well.
see why you think of it as more of a mature market then. If you bought it at 5 cents, that was obviously way ahead.
Yeah, it was quite boring at the time. People were like, it's never going to happen. And I love those words. On Sandbox was always going to happen. Decentraland was always going to happen. It was the right team doing things the right way. Now, when you're the first in something, there are some mistakes that you can make. But Decentraland kind of pushed through some of those mistakes. The Sandbox always had a top level team and the right people to make it happen. It was always obvious to me that it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. And sure enough, as it's maturing and developing and they're getting more and more on board, and they got Snoop Dogg on board, doing an area, and they had Binance, a year ago, and a lot of the top things, they were always putting the right pieces together. It was clear to me that it was going to happen. Now, does this mean that somebody won't come in and do even better? That's an option. I mean, Network is making a metaverse that is more like what we want, not pixelated like Sandbox and Decentraland is. But we've seen with Minecraft, that there's huge appetite even if it's pixelated as long as the functionality is good. So I still think that those will do very well, and I'm open to whatever other ones, new entrants might come in and take up massive market share. But those ones have the advantage of being some of the first. Now, there are a few other ones as well, but those are the two major ones.
Yeah, so the smaller ones would definitely be interesting. I personally, I don't know where to find them, so I would be asking like you, what do you think is the will be the competitors to the Sandbox and Decentraland? But at the moment, those are the ones that I know, unless somebody in the community says, well, check this one out.
Yeah, Network is out, and its token was at 15 cents, and I don't even know what it's at now. It might be $3 or $4. I sold the tokens I had for a big gain there, but I bought a bunch of the land, and the land is now tradable on OpenSea, so you can buy the land, and they just made an update where you can see where the land is. And so they're trading for about 0.8 ETH last I checked. Now, there is a chance, because all the people that bought them in the pre-sale finally have their land. Like if you bought them through a launchpad or in a pre-sale, you finally have access to your land. And sometimes when you have a lot of people that finally have access to their items, well, then sometimes they want to sell and trade those items and make some gains and flip it into something else. So I can't tell whether the price will stay there at 0.8 ETH or whether it'll go down to like 0.5 or 0.4. It just depends on how many of those people aren't committed to the long term. I know I have a ton of land from them, and I invested huge, and I'm just planning to hold it. So I'll sell some later, but right now it's trading at 0.8 ETH. At 3 ETH for the entry level land, it starts to get attractive to me to take some profits.
I think the other important question to ask is, with the metaverse, that's one big area that could be huge in the future, but there may be something else that we haven't thought of that they're creating a technology for. So if anybody's thinking about another area that might might do well, let us know, because this is the, effectively the Wild West, the cutting edge of technology. So people will think of new ways to use these coins and these technologies that perhaps we haven't thought of, and getting in early on those things will be, very interesting indeed.
Yeah, there's a lot happening. If you think about what Pokemon Go did for the world, right, where they connected kind of like an app on the phone that's in the form of a video game related to your geographical location. Well, they have a project coming out that's backed by Animoca Brands. Now, I watch closely at what Animoca Brands backs, and I tried to go into everything that I like behind them. Like, I invest in almost everything that they back and have invested in, because they make a lot of good choices. They were early investors in Axie Infinity, early investors in a lot of the stuff that have done well. They're very sophisticated. They help them to do well as well. One of the ones that they're in is called Drop, with 2 P's. And it's going to have to do with your geographic location, that you can go to certain areas and you can get specific drops in that area, like, say, sneakers for the Metaverse or whatever. If they run some promotion from Nike that you have to go to like a Nike store and get the digital sneaker NFT, right, that might have as much value on the marketplace is like real sneakers. And so they're really, and they're backed by Animoca Brands and some other really savvy investors. And I think that one's going to do really well. It's not yet tradable. They'll be doing their pre-sales, or not pre-sales, they'll be doing their launchpad stuff coming up. I don't have details on that, but I know one of the people that's helping the team, somebody that I used to work with, Harmony One, and know somebody else that's helping with the team, who also helped with ShopX, and some of the other projects that I'm really interested in. And they were sharing the details on that one with me. I was like, that one looks amazing. Yeah, I'm all over that. So that's Drop.
So do you get to hear that because of your network, or is it because of research that you do?
This one came through a network, but sometimes they're the same, right, through research. And part of research is connecting a network. And there are a lot of exciting things coming out, like video gaming is moving to levels of AAA level video games. And you don't strike me as a huge video game player, Paul. But there's a lot of money in video games, and it's moving over to blockchain gaming. And it's so big, like massive amounts of money. And there's kind of an evolution that's happening in gaming. If like 20 years ago, the production model was you invest all this capital to make a video game, and then you sell it for $60, and then maybe you do a special version that has special things for $90. And then you get so long that you're on the market shelves before you then start having to mark it down. And that's your chance to recoup your funds, or was your chance. And that's how the model worked. But with the advent of the internet, like that model somewhat changed, and this idea of free-to-play came out. Hey, we're going to let you play the game for free. Oh, you want skins for your character and everything? Well, that costs money, right? So PUBG, and what's the other big game, D, that they play where you hang glider in? My kids love Fortnite.
Oh, God,
so,
yeah.
yeah, massive money. They've made so much more money than the traditional model, and that's by offering the game for free. However, here's the big downside. You don't really own those items.
Yeah.
Right? You can't sell them. You can't trade them. You can't take them off the platform, sell them somewhere else. So if they get mad at you for some reason, they can always shut you down and shut down your account. And so you don't have true ownership there. So a lot of this is going to move to blockchain gaming. Now, a lot of the blockchain gaming stuff that's coming out right now is all pretty simple. I mean, Axie Infinity was always pretty simple, but that hasn't stopped it from generating like billions of dollars, right? And because this concept is so big, and they did a good enough job, and they hit out of the park with this idea, and really were the test case for the play-to-earn model, where you could go out and play and earn money. Now, specifically with their game, it costs you about $500 to get a starting team, because you have to have 3 characters to play it. And so it's not truly even free to play. It costs money to play only because you have to buy the 3 axes, because you need 3 axes in order to then play. and those would run you roughly $500 for a not very good team, about $5,000 for a pretty darn good team that'll help you win more if you know what you're doing with them. But then you could earn $10, $20, $30 a day. So you have Vietnam and the Philippines and Venezuela, where they're playing these games and they're earning more money doing this than they could at their job.
Wow.
And so this revolution is going to continue, and so the money that's already in gaming, which is gigantic, a lot of that is just going to pour over to here. And because there's money to be made, they're creating even more gamers, right? Because somebody who wasn't into games is like, wait, I can make more money playing that than working at the factory? Okay, I'm going to do it. And the reason there's money to be made there is because the value of time. And I used to play this game called EVE Online, and I was playing it back in 2002, 2003. And I had this friend that played with me, and he made $700,000 a year in his day job, right? So his time was very limited, though. He didn't get to play it a lot. So there's this value of, well, shoot, I can't grind for 50 hours to get XYZ item. Can I just buy it from you? I mean, shoot, how much do you want? You know, and somebody who has a low value on their time, say where they're at, they would only be able to make $3 an hour. So they put 20 hours into it. And so that's $60 of value in their book. But they say, I'll sell it to you for $100. And a guy making $700,000 is like, 100, I'll give you 120, and let's be done with it. So that's where it creates some value, and it's just the value in time of opportunity costs of what people could be doing with their time. So it's not creating money out of thin air. A lot of this money used to go into the hands directly of the game developers. That's why the game developers wanted this trapped value, that you can't sell anything. You can only buy from them. You can't buy it from other players. And what Axie did smart is they just take like 4.25% of the marketplace fees, and they let people exchange freely. And they made their first $1 billion in revenue, and they're like, oh my gosh. And they proved this model works, right? So Axie Infinity has made up like half the NFT sales over the past year.
That's so interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, so that's why there's so much money in this. Like, crypto is going to revolutionize finance, gaming, and then collectibles first. It'll then revolutionize other areas, like how you explore your music concerts, like you go to them virtually. This whole Metaverse concept is kind of like a combination of the collectibles and the gaming side of things, but it's kind of its own thing too. So we're seeing how this evolves, and there will be use cases that come out of this that, like you said, Paul, that we don't know yet that we will see. Why don't we jump into, if it's okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Some of the audience suggestions.
Great stuff. Yes, indeed. So the first one I think on the list is POLO, which I'm not sure which one from
they
this.
They changed their name. POLO. I think it's NftyPlay, but
okay. Well, then that's this one here, right? So what have we got going on here? Well, clearly we've still got this downward trend. The question is this trend at the end, or is there a little bit more to go? Just see if there's a bit more data. No, there isn't. Okay, so this little pattern here is what looks like to be a descending triangle, and it looks like a very small descending triangle. The thing with this is it's usually a bearish pattern, so it would mean that the market needs to break this 0.0017 level and then trade a bit lower, but it has been in quite a downtrend already. So if it's going to end, this could be the last move before a turnaround. Now, I can't obviously guarantee that, because part of technical analysis is waiting for the signal that the market has turned, and we haven't seen that as yet. Now, I would like to see this descending triangle pattern, which is usually quite reliable. It not 100%, nothing is, as Crypto Reign's told you before, everything's probability. If we can negate this, and we can negate it just by taking out the even the middle of the pattern would do, which would be at 0.00203. but definitely through 0.0022. So if we can take the top of that pattern out, this pattern's negated, and then we're in a reversal, a short-term reversal, which would be a good sign. So for the moment, unfortunately, that trend is still in effect, and there isn't quite enough for me to call for a reversal as yet, unless this pattern gives a failed signal, which would be a good sign. So without knowing much about the background to this, I would proceed with a bit of caution.
Yeah, it's about 93% down, and 95% down sounds like an attractive buy price. It's not quite there. My guess is it's going to break this to the downside at least one more time. So if you look at the highs, it was at 2.2 cents at the highs. And now we are way down from that, or 2.15 cents. So we're down over 90%, but we're not quite at 95%. And this is why crypto is so volatile, and this is why selling at highs makes sense, right? At least taking your profits out. Specifically, this one blasted off mid-November, and then right at the beginning of December collapsed. But look at this little blip of activity we have in February. If you look at the very bottom of that chart, you see the little red, like the green and red down below, down here. Yeah, down below we can see some activity happening in volume, and that volume is interesting. It's showing signs of life, right? So it's not a bad small dollar cost average place in at this price. It's definitely, if I were holding this, and I am holding this, I am not selling at these prices. No way. I do not sell at drastic lows like this. So this is like a dollar cost average in like just a tiny bit, because the likelihood that it breaks down and continues this trend, I still think is high enough that I would just dip a toe in, and then I would see if it hits that 95% down level, and then buy it. Now, thankfully, I didn't buy this at 2.1 cents. I had bought it before, and I took some profits there. So I'm out on this as far as my initial investment, and then holding for the longer term, because I think this one will do better. When the general market hits an uptrend, it'll correct and probably exceed its previous highs.
Yeah, I mean, it's if it's a good technology, it's definitely under a bit of a cloud. So one last move, and even a small amount would be worth sort of just dipping a toe in, because if it's going to turn around, it'll have a very big upward trend when it eventually comes. So that's what makes it so fascinating when you know that the underlying technology is a good one. You can just sit and hold it. But once also you're in a good position where you've got rid of your initial investment, you're just effectively playing with a zero risk on your portfolio. That's where you can make good decisions, because you don't feel like you're under pressure.
Yeah, and I remember it going up and hitting these higher numbers, and if it weren't for my rules, I wouldn't have sold. I was like, wow, man, it's going up so crazy. What if it keeps going up? And I was like, get your initial out. It just jumped a whole bunch. Just get your initial out. That was my logic side going. And my emotional side was like, what if it doubles and triples and quadruples from here? And then I kicked myself for even taking my initial out so early. And I was like, just do it. So I took my initial out. And then it crashed right after that, right? So that's why it's not a bad idea, especially take out at least your initial, especially if it like 3 or 4 X's, because then you're only sacrificing a part of your total investment, and you're getting your initial out, and then you're playing with house money the rest of the way. And I almost didn't do that on this, and I did, thank goodness. But because I'm bullish for it, that it's a really small, low-cap gem that I think will do well in the broader market. I don't know if it'll be around 20 years from now, but there's very few projects that I feel like will, at this point, have proved their case that they'll be around 20 years from now. Is this a great smaller cap project? It is, and it could become a mid cap and maybe someday a large cap. So their original name was going to be PolkaPlay, because they were tied into the Polkadot ecosystem, and they changed it to NftyPlay because that way they could bridge across several different technologies and not just be pegged to Polkadot. So that was smart. of them to do that. But that's why there was a P in their initial name, and that's why when I see the token, sometimes I'm like, what? Polo. Oh yeah, Polka Play. But then
Right. I
they
see.
changed it to NFT Play.
So interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, these name changes always get me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Great.
That one we got
Smart SMRT. Is that
SMRT. Yeah.
yeah. So is that coin or something else?
No, it's Solminter, and you can find that one better on Nomics if you can't find. Oh, you can find it there. Solminter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it there.
Yes. It was just I've got to move my bits of screen out of the way because um there we go. Solomon, there we go.
Versus we want it versus the dollar though, if we
Oh,
can.
sorry. Yeah. Yes, I think we have seen this one before, haven't we? And
Yes, we have.
yeah, and this has been a very consistent downward trend, which could have reversed. Look at this. This is interesting. It's made a final move to the downside, and it's now turning around. Now it's a small turnaround, but it is a turnaround nonetheless. So price action is looking good. We've got a nice green candle here. It hasn't retraced all of that green candle yet. So we've got an emerging upward trend. It is very tentative. It's some green shoots. To be fair, it's done that before and it's fallen away. But there's something about the way this is made. Like I'm just comparing it to say these previous moves. So you had a previous move here where it tried to move up and then just sort of came back down again. Whereas this, it feels like a longer base. And these are very sharp moves to the downside. And what you need, what you're looking for is a sign that the market has been shaken out, so you get that kind of final capitulation before the market turns around. Excuse me. So I like this little move here. I'd like to see it build on that. If this current bar can stay within the range of this green bar, it would look really good. It would sort of sit here where I've got the cursor, and then you should get another breakout to the upside. Nice strong green candle will do wonders for this. Now, as you can see, the trend has been so negative here. So it's got a lot of work to do to turn around. And until it gets through this prior resistance, which is where it consolidated before, I think you've got to approach with caution. But I would be willing to, nibble at this here just because it's showing a bit of life.
Yeah, can you pull that up on CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap? It'll have more history there. Or
Yeah.
Nomics will be the very best, actually.
Yeah.
Nomics. Because it doesn't show, when I started talking about this, it actually pumped after that all the way to 5 cents and then began this long slide down. So on this long slide down, I've dollar cost averaged more into it. And I wish I had something that was up right now. I guess I have a couple things that are up, but most of that is the VV collectibles. Most everything is down and been savage because I like this buy point on it. And I've been dollar cost averaging into this and some other Solana projects, and my positions are down from when I bought in. That's just part of it. That's just what I know is often part of the game because it's hard to get the very bottom, and I'm okay with that. To me, that's an acceptable risk, and then it goes down more, and I like that risk because then I can buy more and cheap. I don't do it on leverage, though, so my risk is low that way so that I have the ability to be patient. So I like the little signal it's giving us. I think it's below IDO price. When I was checking the numbers, I was able to find the IDO price, and I saw that it was 67% cheaper than IDO price, and that usually is a really good floor. And what happens is a lot of your pre-sale investors that bought, they'll continue to sell just when they get their tokens, even though they're selling at a huge loss, which is what can drive the price down to such lows because they already sold some earlier and got their profits out, right? So for them, they just, I'm already positive on this, and they just dump their tokens. and then they dump their tokens into people like me's hands because I like to buy cheap, and I like this price. I'm a little bit sad that it's come up from where it was. I just need something to pop off, especially in the Solana ecosystem is the easiest, so that I can then just flip some into this at lows. So love this price. I happened to get lucky and I took some profits out on this just because following my system. I took out my initial when it hit, I think it hit 5 cents way back, if you're able to go back far enough.
Yeah,
And
it's I've got all the data going out, and it's
there we go. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
It hit 5 cents, and I was just
Yeah.
like, well, okay, this is going crazy. Just following my principles, take some profits out of the table. I sold 20%. Obviously, if I knew the chart was going to look like that, I would have sold like 95% or 100%, just so I could then load it all in cheaper. I only sold 20%, but selling that 20%, I got all my money back plus a little bit, because we were covering this when it was below a penny, and it was about half a cent. So it went 10x. And then, took some profits out. Still believe in this. This is a gem, like a low cap gem. I don't know that this will ever be a $50 billion market cap one. I just can't see that. But its market cap, if we were to look at it, is probably extremely low right now. In fact, I can pull it up. And it'll be higher in the future unless I'm wrong on my thesis. But that's how I play it. So 270 million total supply, and it's trading at less than a penny. In fact, less than 1/10 of a penny. So whatever that math works out to, this market cap is extremely small. Would that be $270,000 market cap?
It's a good time to be talking about it, given where the price
exactly.
is. If it's a good technology, definitely.
Great suggestion. It allows projects to be able to, when they IDO and everything, to release their tokens simply. And I think specifically on Solana, so I think it's positioned to get some attention and get a lot of use as the market heats up again, and then the token pumps. And I think they'll do well. So great suggestion by your audience. It's a fantastic time to be talking about Solminter. May get cheaper from here. I don't know. It may have hit its bottoms. It may not ever come back to these lows.
Yeah. So the next one is here we go. OAI.
Yeah. OAI is Omni. There we go. That's it.
Oh.
They changed the ticker symbol because there were so many Omnis.
Oh,
and they got sick of everyone trying to pull up Omni, and then they were pulling up OAI. But Omni's been savage too. This is a social media competitor. They're trying to create a competitor to Facebook and TikTok that uses the blockchain so that you own your own NFTs.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So this is there was a big price spike across a load of different coins that are affecting all the charts.
They mess up the charts, yeah.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I wish they'd clean those out, but so it means we can't get like full data going back, unfortunately, because of those spikes. But I mean, look, what can one say about this at the moment other than it is still under pressure? We had a great consolidation here, which I would have liked to have seen form a base. Like what we're looking for, you get a downward trend, then a basing pattern, like what's called a double bottom or a W. So if you think of a W, it goes down, up, and then back down again, and then breaks higher. And the signal to do that would have been a break of this 0.039 or 0.04 level, which it didn't manage to take out. It failed here, and that area there was the perfect time to do it. So it's come back into the range, broken the low, which is another technical sell signal. So we're still operating from a technical sell signal from a failed reversal. So, until it can recover this 0.0316, which is that's good support there. So there's buying there. You can see how strong that candle is. And then it came back here again. And when the market sees good support, they join it again and they have another go. So this third time it broke, there will be positions being that, there's people out there who want to bail on those positions as soon as they can because they're underwater. So if it goes back to this level here, 0.0311, they're going to try and get out. So a good signal for me is if it can close over that, take those sell signals out, you know, the people who just want to bail from a short-term perspective, and then break back up to here. That for me would be a really nice sign that this is turning around. But for the moment, whilst it's below that level, I think we've got to proceed with a bit of caution.
Yeah, for me, this is a buy at this price with the same kind of philosophy. It might get cheaper. And that's just kind of how I operate. And this is how I buy at lows, knowing that, especially I'm liking how rounded it's getting, right? So the bottom is rounding, and that makes a lot, you know. In life, we're attracted to rounded bottoms, aren't we? So why not in investing? I look for rounded bottoms, and yeah, that's getting pretty round, and that tells me it's probably going to start going the other direction. Not quite there, might get a little bit cheaper, but here's what I know is that I part of the system that I use works for me not to have to be paying attention to the charts all the time. So I did try leverage trading. What I found is it was wrecking my personal life and also my enjoyment in life, because I was like having to tune in all the time. I was stressed anytime I left the computer for more than an hour. And so I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I was trying to learn how to use technical analysis. And I was like, there's got to be a different way. And so I just kind of took the longer term hold that I had to do in real estate, which is very, you know, the price changes much slower. It's hard to sell. And so when I see these rounded bottoms, I see these things, I'd rather buy in, because I found sometimes I miss. So I put a placeholder in, I buy some, and then if it does get cheaper and I catch it, then I buy some more. And then sometimes I then miss, like, and it takes off, and I was like, oh, I should have bought even more. You know, that does happen in the system. But it's fantastic when you're running into that problem, because it means your position has skyrocketed, right? So when I bought 5 of the VV collectibles, the Todd McFarlane Batman, you know, at the same time I bought 4 of the Jokers, and I'm like, well, why didn't I buy, the Jokers cost as much as the Todd McFarlane did. The Todd McFarlane Batman's gone from $80 to $12,000. And the Joker's gone up to like $600 or $800 or maybe $1,000. I don't remember exactly. So I'm like, man, why didn't I buy more of the Todds? But when you're saying that, that means you're experiencing the kind of problems we all want to have more of. Why didn't I buy more of what I did buy? Yeah. Because I saw the value there, and I knew that it would happen, and yet it did, right? Yeah, so would we all have that problem every single day?
Some of what we do in technical analysis is to be able to join a trend that is actually moving up very aggressively. So in the same way that when the market gives signals on the way down and you want to sort of ride it out, obviously for someone like me who doesn't know whether the technology is good or not, and whether it's going to go to zero or whether it's just getting really good, you know, as a bargain basement price, I have to wait for these lows to or at least wait for the market to show me that buying is coming in. But then the flip side of that, when things get sort of excessive on the upside, inverted commas, there are some great signals that I'm looking forward to in the future to be able to share with you, to show, look, this is a very high probability breakout, and you can actually buy a new high and it will have a good possibility of going higher. But that always feels so much better when you've got a little bit from a lower level as well to add to that position. And so there's many different strategies, and I think in the end it's got to be one that works for your own mindset. But it's so interesting that we approach it from in a different way. I think you have a tremendous advantage just because you know more about the technology, which is, you know, ultimately will always trump what I look for, because I'm by nature of what I'm doing waiting for a low on purpose. I will be late into something for the sake of not buying something that I'm not sure
and then
about.
Get savaged even more, which is
exactly. So that's part of the process. You let the lows, you know, because I don't know where the low is going to be, I don't want to get caught in it not knowing whether I should be getting out or not, because it might go to zero, so I get trapped in it. Whereas if you're, you know, reasonably confident that it's a good technology, then the cheaper it gets. It's like Warren Buffett seeing share prices of things he likes getting cheaper and everyone's selling, and him saying, well, why are you doing that? This is a great technology or a great company or whatever. But no, it's very interesting.
And
So
the good thing about price analysis, you can jump to other things. Like when crypto is getting savaged by a bear market, right? Like you can just like, okay, I'm going to go trade oil futures because I just look at price analysis, right?
exactly.
So,
And yeah, so there will always be something that looks interesting, like coffee looks like it's going to break up, and
yeah,
once you've seen the patterns in one market, another market, you see it again because the
you
market
can
is
be
market.
catching the bull market in something else because you know how to read the charts. Yep.
Exactly. So it actually helps if it's a more actively traded market, generally speaking. When you've got something that's very small, it can be overly influenced by just a few big positions. So this is why some of these smaller coins are so interesting, but also can be overly influenced. And
By a few
therefore
big positions.
yeah, so that's why I have to proceed with a bit more caution. But it's fascinating to see the birth of these technologies, and I'm sure some of the ones that you're talking about now will be like household names. And sorry, I think I'm sharing my. Just give it. There'll be household names in the future, so it'll be really interesting to see when people have heard about these, and when you hear your friends talking about stuff that you've talked about on your show, that then you really know it's gone into the mainstream.
Right?
Yeah.
We only have time for one more. Let's
Okay.
see of these. Let's look at Marsh
Sure.
because their price has gotten savage too, and I'm actually pretty happy with where their price is at. I did not buy when all the channels were pumping this one because I was
So
like, sorry, I don't chase into green candles,
yeah.
and the
So it's this
price
one.
has gotten really cheap. Unmarshal, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we show the
Um.
entire history? It's not too long. It went way
Yeah.
higher. There we go. $10.
Wow.
$10. So it's
Yeah.
down 95%. That's a really good number, I'm telling you. Sometimes they go down to 99%, but we're not in a full-on crypto winter. We're just in a seasonal storm.
Well, if it's going to turn around, here is a very, very good place for it to do that. But this rally here, what I like to see is an acceleration of it. Now, look at the rate that it came down, and look at the rate that it went up. The rate that it went up was very flat compared to the rate that it went down. So when something is good, it rallies fast. So that would have been a bit of a warning sign that this move here,
Was
you
so
know,
slow.
it was so slow. Yeah. So if it goes down and it's a really great buy, it bounces, everyone piles in, it rallies up in a, like putting your hand on a hot plate, it just goes boom. But this didn't do that. It just went up really slowly, which is okay. It was going up, but it wasn't going up fast enough. So we got this correction, which has matched the previous low, and buying's come in again, and now it's trying to recover. So is this a shakeout? Is this like, are people being shaken out here? Because if we then step to, let's say, the 15th of December or 13th of December, whether you were bullish or bearish, the market is actually like pretty much in the same place. And for me, that's the first sign. I look at the lows, the way the lows are operating, and that's the first sign that the market's turning around. Now, again, I've got to be really cautious because it hasn't given a major reversal signal, because that won't come until it's broken 0.68. But at least it's holding some really good support here. It's 4 days into doing that. If it can accelerate up here, the chart will look really good. But ultimately, see this, talking about the descending triangle before, this is a descending triangle. This is where all the highs are coming down. The lows are around the same area. So you get this like triangular constriction. Now that breakout where the support is exactly where the resistance is. So the big level this needs to break doubly is 0.68. If it can get through that, I will really like it. I will buy it through that level. Now, I don't mind giving up some of the lows to wait for that to happen, because I have to do that because I don't know as much about the technology that you do. But if that does happen, and if it's a good technology, at some point it will, then that's my tripwire to get in.
Yeah, I like it at this price. For me, it's a buy at this price. It may get cheaper again. It's showing it's kind of got smacked down hard again, and it's not quite ready to run. But I think we're in times that we'll be looking back and we'll be like, wow, I wish I could rewind time to February 2nd and buy at those levels.
Brilliant.
So we'll see how this plays out. But thank you, Paul, for your time, and thank you to Affinity for loaning you to us. I love this. Our audience loves it. This is actually one of their favorite episodes of the week.
My pleasure. Really enjoy it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. Are you ready to be a Rainmaker and join the Navy SEALs of the crypto in order to level up your crypto game? Do note this channel isn't for everyone. Our goal isn't to be the biggest YouTube channel, but it is to help create the most informed audience in crypto, which we believe will lead to the wealthiest audience in crypto. Part of that journey is being realized as some of our audiences crushed it with the VV collectibles and with some of them being up over 100x. But the larger part of that is yet to happen, as many of the altcoins are yet to have their day in the sun, and that is still coming. Now, for our Rainmaker system work for you, you have to understand that comes through joining us on a daily basis. So if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Maybe I have done a poor job at explaining the value of how this system works, and that's on me, not on you. Thank you all for joining us. Hope to see you soon. And for all of you Rainmakers, I'll see you next time. All right.
Came into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was boring, like a Rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out, cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a Rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic, they dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a Rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the gain show. Sticking out this road cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go Rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a Rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.